Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review, Cult of Luna, Vertikal. Cult of Luna is a Swedish atmospheric sludge metal outfit that has been putting out albums since the early 2000s. And even though they didn't develop the style as early as bands like Neurosis did, they are still considered, in the pantheon of great atmospheric sludge metal acts like Pelican and Isis. Typically bands in this genre have a pretty moderate amount of heaviness to their sound. Maybe they're not quite as bassy or as saturated as their more doom metal counterparts such as Earth or Electric Wizard, Candlemass, My Dying Bride, Saint Vitus. But it can be said that bands like Cult of Luna do like to dip their toes into doom territory when they see fit. Cult of Luna is definitely not all about thickness and heaviness and just massive riffs. There's quite a bit of melody in the songs that the band puts together through very harmonious chords, very standout guitar leads, and on this particular album, keyboards. A lot of music listeners actually compare a lot of the guitar tones that these guys use, as well as the progression and the melodies and the chords to that of post-rock bands. So it's no surprise that a lot of bands in this genre admit a post-rock influence. Some listeners go as far as to label bands like Isis and Russian Circles and Cult of Luna as just post-metal because of how prevalent the post-rock influence is. I can absolutely understand if somebody kind of sees all this labeling as sort of like hair-splitting, but I will say that though Cult of Luna does have those spacious atmospheric sounds, those heavily treated and effect-heavy guitar melodies, there is a very strong metal influence in what they do. They're undeniably a metal band, no matter how atmospheric or experimental they get. But while they are a metal band, they are not a metal band that writes songs that rock as much as they do slowly, beautifully, mournfully, and sometimes apocalyptically progress and develop. Now, these guys have written a couple great standout albums in this genre over the years, like 2004 Salvation and 2006's Somewhere Along the Highway, but the group has been kind of continuously haunted by comparisons to things that Isis has already done. And I gotta say, overall with Vertikal, it doesn't really seem that the band is making any impressive attempts to kind of break out of these post-metal boundaries anytime soon, even with some very obvious trying through electronics and writing their longest song yet. The LP starts off pretty decently after a very inconspicuous ambient introduction with the song I, The Weapon, or the riff kicks in pretty quick, the vocals are there, the drums and bass are there. I mean, they are just going full force as this song begins, but honestly it wears pretty thin pretty quickly for me. I mean, these guys definitely have their sounds in order. That awesome background vocal that's like, ah! The guitar tones are heavy, the bass is really distorted and muddy, the drums sound sharp. I love the way that they're kind of shuffling along, switching between a slower pace and a faster pace. The guitar leads are really wailing on this track as well, but it just feels so stagnant. The thing is that the band just kind of shifts through these different modes of the same riff, like various instruments will sort of, take precedent or sort of steal the spotlight for a little bit over this same sort of monotonous, not that impressive to begin with riff. The ending of the song really kind of breaks things down and changes them into something else. It's a pretty spot in the song, and overall I liked the track. I guess the pacing and the groove was cool, and like I already said, the sounds are great. I just wish the detail was there that I've heard and loved in previous Cult of Luna releases. Again, this song is okay, but the album just gets more boring as it moves on because a lot of the louder spots function on the same ideas, and the quieter moments are just not as interesting or as dark as I think the band is shooting for. Like the track Vicarious Redemption, which is about 19 minutes. It has this kind of do-nothing intro, and as soon as the riff pops in, it's really just kind of an inconspicuous riff. When the vocals pop in, they're just like the same vocals, kind of screaming at the same pace, with the same kind of intensity, with no real changes in emotion or anything like that. And there's not really much detail in this song in the way of interesting sound or guitar tones or effects. I feel like they attempt to though, but when they try to venture out of their comfort zone, it gets kind of awkward or even like laughable. Like in the middle of this really long track, the band kind of sporadically breaks into a semi-dance beat with these bass waves that kind of resemble that of a dubstep song. Not only does this completely obliterate whatever great things this song had going for it so far, because most people are going to link that sound to dubstep, but even so, even if you're not really saying, oh, that's totally dubstep what they're doing right there, what makes this part feel so awkward is that the electronics just sound pretty generic and they're applied and played so haphazardly. The song The Sweep right after this track feels kind of like a rehash of what I had heard in the previous song, but just done through this progressive, epic synth sound. But the synthesizers are just so mashed on top of each other so messily with these screaming vocals, it sounds like this just very unappealing synth vocal soup. The songs Synchronicity and Mute Departure do kind of bring their own flavors to this album. Mute does have some clean singing on it. Synchronicity has some pretty awesome, glossy, sort of progressive synth leads soaring over the guitar riffs that I like a lot. Sounds like something that would kind of be in like a sci-fi film. But both songs kind of suffer from the same issues that other tracks on here do. They're just too unimaginative in terms of progression. I think the only other song I liked in the back end of this LP was the track In Awe Of, and it's not exactly surprising in terms of sort of building a track or just sort of bringing it from point A to point B, but the band does bring a lot of energy on this track, and as they kind of slow down before they hit the middle point of the song and make things a bit quieter, it does stay engaging. And when they finally explode with some massively heavy riffs in the second half of the track, it's really kind of the emotional highlight of the album. Beyond this, there's just a closer where you are getting cleanly sung vocals, but it's just such a desolate track in terms of interesting things to listen to. The album really kind of fizzles out in the same way that it fizzled in. I can definitely say that on this LP, Cult of Luna has not lost their sound. They most definitely have that, but I think that's sort of a blessing and a curse. The band has kind of become stuck in this in a way because they're not really writing tracks with the same detail that they usually do, and like I said, when they try to apply something like electronics to a song, it just becomes kind of a blunder. I'm feeling a light 5 on this LP. If you've given this a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it, hate it, why? What should I review next? And yeah, that's it. Anthony Fantano, Cult of Luna, forever.